Welcome to The Eye Opener. I am your host, Michael Lewis. In America, there is a saying called the 0-year curse, also known as the presidential curse. It originated from an incident in 1840, the year William Harrison, former president of the United States, was elected. He was cursed by the leader of the Shawnee tribe because of his killing of the natives. The reason it is called the 0-year curse is because that year happened to end in a zero. President Harrison, who was elected in 1840, died of pneumonia only a month after taking office. Then President Lincoln, who came into office in the 1860s, was assassinated 5 years later. President Garfield in 1880 also assassinated. President McKinley in 1900 also assassinated as well. President Harding in 1920 died of food poisoning, and President Roosevelt in 1940 died of stroke. President Kennedy was also assassinated by a gunman in 1960. President Reagan, who was elected in 1980, was assassinated by a gunman shortly after taking office, but was resuscitated. It had been said that the 0-year curse was broken during Reagan's presidency. That is why President Bush, elected in 2000, is safe. And what about 2020? We will have to see. Trump's legal battle isn't easy. He faces a great deal of pressure. Lin Wood, the attorney helping Trump in his legal battle, tweeted on the morning of November 18th that he had received more than the normal number of profane emails, insults, and death threats in the last couple of days. He questioned the people who made these threats, asking them, "Have I made anybody upset in these groups?" Attorney Lin Wood's words are often powerful, righteous, and to the point. For example, after joining Trump's legal team, he said that the United States is facing a constitutional crisis. And if we don't figure out what happened on the night of November 3rd, then this dark cloud hanging over America will turn into a storm, causing Americans to lose their freedom. That is why we must fight back now. He also said that the current election fraud was a well-planned effort 20 years in the making. The mainstream media is using its usual tactics of lying to Americans. While President Trump was close to a landslide victory, the media told the opposite story and declared Biden's fraudulent victory as truth. Lin Wood warns that these people want to take away your rights and repeal your Constitution. Don't let them get away with it, and don't let President Trump go at it alone. He also forewarned of the eventual incarceration of Biden. Lin Wood is currently putting in an all-out effort to help Trump win his legal battles. In Georgia, for example, Lin Wood has filed for an emergency injunction to prohibit Georgia from certifying the election results. This is because the hand recount, which was rescheduled to end at midnight on November 18th, was completed ahead of schedule. But the recount seemed like a formality, as no real changes happened. The only thing found was a recovered memory card that stored uncounted ballots from Floyd, Fayette, and Walton counties. The total number of votes saved in these three memory cards exceeded 5,000, of which more than 3,000 were for Trump. However, based on the numbers released to the public, the gap between Trump and Biden in Georgia is more than 10,000 votes. Adding these newly discovered votes will not help Trump overturn the original results. So in many areas of Georgia, recounts were not taken seriously, as they just reported the original numbers. Trump tweeted on November 16th, accusing Georgia's recount being nothing but a sham and that they wouldn't allow the counting staff to verify the ballots by checking the signatures. This means that there is no way to screen out fraudulent ballots, making the recount a pointless exercise. Georgia was scheduled to certify the winner of the election this Friday, November 20th. But on November 18th, the Trump team urged the state of Georgia that the recount must be verified, that the signatures on the ballots are legitimate, and that Georgia cannot determine the election results until the recount is accurately completed and the results confirmed. Attorney Lin Wood also tweeted that day that Georgia is a cesspool of corruption. November 3rd election and recount underway are fraudulent. The court must intervene and stop this theft of our votes and our election. On November 13th, Lin Wood had sued Georgia's Secretary of State, Raffensperger, in Atlanta's federal court. Another Trump attorney, Sidney Powell, revealed that Georgia has used the controversial Dominion voting system and that Governor Kemp and Secretary of State Raffensperger's family subsequently received $106 million in kickbacks from Dominion. This is the latest in a long line of election fraud and corruption scandals. Meanwhile, stories from inside Dominion are being revealed. We've already covered a lot of them in the last 2 days, but let's look at it more closely. As we mentioned in previous programs, Dominion uses the Smartmatic voting system, a powerful tool used by socialist dictator of Venezuela for fraudulent elections. Chavez and Maduro were re-elected in Venezuela by the Smartmatic voting system without resistance. Ms. Powell, one of Trump's lawyers, alleges that Smartmatic not only received money from the Venezuelan regime, but also investment from the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, Smartmatic had financial ties to the CCP. The Chinese Communist Party and the Venezuelan dictator also have a close relationship. According to Rudy Giuliani, another lawyer for Trump's team, the Dominion voting system, most commonly used in this current U.S. election, is a front for Smartmatic. To be clear, the essence of Dominion is actually Smartmatic, just with a different name. And since Smartmatic has financial ties to the CCP, the repeated accusations by Trump's lawyers that the Chinese Communist Party is sabotaging the U.S. elections are well grounded. Giuliani also alleges that Dominion, the buddy to Smartmatic, is a radical left-wing company whose members are hardcore fans of the far-left terrorist group Antifa. Now, it's scary to think that at least 29 states are running by such a voting system in this U.S. election. Dominion itself has issued what is called a rumor discrediting statement. It denied all allegations, saying that the Pelosi family, Senate Democrat Dianne Feinstein's, the Clinton Global Initiative, Smartmatic, Saito, and Venezuela had nothing to do with the company. The fact is that Dominion's statement mentioned people the public doesn't even know, which has actually piqued my interest to learn more. However, Dominion has not explicitly denied that it donated to the Clinton Global Initiative in 2014, nor has it denied that a former Pelosi employee was hired as a lobbyist by Dominion. At the very least, these 2 points prove that Dominion interacts more closely with Democrats than they do with the Republicans. The Dominion voting system has been repeatedly questioned for its involvement in tampering with ballots in this election, favoring Biden in a number of states, including Wisconsin. The system of ballot tampering through computer programs is just one of the many ways the leftists are committing fraud in this election. On November 18th, all 72 counties in Wisconsin filed their election results, showing Biden leading Trump by a total of 20,608 votes. Trump's team now has the right to file for a recount in Wisconsin, but recounts cost money. A statewide recount in Wisconsin would cost Trump's team about $8 million, but they could also choose to recount only in certain important counties, which would cost far less. I do think that's somewhat unfair. Biden cheated, and the Trump team had to pay for it themselves in order for the elections to be fair. After the truth is revealed, I do think that Biden should repay these costs. Of course, for Trump, the good news of a victory is most important. Now, at this time, Trump's team is issuing a statement that they will request a recount in Wisconsin counties, Milwaukee, and Dane at an expense of $3 million. In addition, Trump's legal team said they would keep all legal options open for other election fraud issues, noting that they would not stop their lawsuits unless all Americans believe the results of the election in Wisconsin and across the nation are fair. Meanwhile, all of Michigan's counties had certified results as of November 18th. Wayne County, the most populous in Michigan, where the certification stalemate was reported the night before, had also certified its results. But at the request of Wayne County Republicans, the Detroit City ballots in the county will be re-audited. The current results in Michigan still show Biden has a narrow lead. The Michigan's Board of State Canvassers, which is responsible for the certification results, was scheduled to hold a public Q&A session on the morning of the 18th, where people could voice their objections. However, the meeting was postponed to the afternoon and then canceled because all Michigan counties had already certified their results. Michigan's certification of the general election results, originally scheduled for November 13th, was also moved up to the following Monday, November 23rd. However, a team of Trump's attorney are currently working on a Michigan case that would go to the Supreme Court. And in Pennsylvania, the Trump team will be the first to get the ball rolling for another case to the Supreme Court. On November 4th, Trump's team filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania to stop the state from counting votes until Republican Party poll watchers are allowed to enter the counting stations. On November 4th, Trump's team filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania to stop the state from counting votes until Republican poll watchers are allowed to enter the counting stations. The lawsuit was recently dismissed by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Giuliani said the failure of the Pennsylvania lawsuit was expected, and the dismissal of some cases by Democrat-held courts is an opportunity for the Trump team to take the case to the Supreme Court. Getting to the U.S. Supreme Court also means that Trump's legal battles have reached a critical stage. Currently, the Pennsylvania vote count is over, and the Trump team is taking the case to the Supreme Court. The significance of the case is no longer whether the Republican poll observers were allowed, but rather the entire Pennsylvania election has been tarnished because of the Trump team's allegations. And Trump is hoping that the Supreme Court will issue an order prohibiting Pennsylvania from certifying the election results. The Supreme Court's conservative majority now favors Trump's lawsuits. In this way, it seems that Trump's legal battle will really end up in the Supreme Court. But regardless of the outcome, Biden will not be able to win the hearts and minds of all Americans. The Oath Keepers, the nation's largest militia group, which includes tens of thousands of Americans who have been in the military or in law enforcement, is an armed conservative group that also participated in the D.C. pro-Trump march last Saturday. They told the media on November 14th that they would not recognize the election, that about half of the people in the United States would not recognize Biden as a legitimate president. This means that everything Biden says will be seen as having no validity or effect. And with any laws that are signed, they will not be recognized as legal. They will see it as unconstitutional and will resist them. On November 12th, in an interview on The Voice of America, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's China policy and planning advisor Miles Yu explained the main points of the policy that Trump is currently implementing. He mentioned that all U.S. administrations had established policies, but the Trump administration is the most clear-cut in decades, so it's perfectly appropriate to call it Trumpism. This Trumpism consists of three main themes. Let us go through them together. First, the America First national policy that Trump has been implementing for the past 4 years. This is not unilateralism, but in the face of globalization, the U.S. should first consider its own national interests because the U.S. has great influence on the entire world. Secondly, you described it as principled realism, which simply means sticking to principles. There are several aspects to this. One is not to forget the fundamental principles, including human rights and freedom, when formulating U.S. policy. Another is to stick to fundamental principles and not to be monopolized by special interest groups. And being selfless is being fearless. Pompeo has been very bold in his foreign relations with China, precisely because he is not controlled by special interest groups. For example, what is the fundamental issue in North Korea? Trump discovered the root of the problem. Trump's administration abandoned the six-party talks in which the Chinese Communist Party participates and negotiated directly with the North Korean government, thus reducing the Chinese Communist Party's intervention. Third, the Trump administration attaches great importance to credibility. You said that current administration is a government that does what it says, which is one of the most distinctive features. The reason is that Trump wants to restore America's global credibility, while previous presidents have often said one thing and done another. In summary, the three main aspects of Trumpism that we talked about include: first, America comes first; second, adherence to the pursuit of fundamental principles and root causes of problems; and third, doing what you say you're going to do. In addition, Mr. Yu also emphasized that the China policy is the #1 position in the Trump administration. In the past, the Communist Party of China was only used as a card played by previous U.S. administrations to fight against the Soviet Union, the Vietnam War, and the North Korean nuclear issue, and was only used in a supporting role. But the Trump administration reversed course and made the Chinese Communist Party the main offensive target. Trump has also abandoned the previous administration's illusions about the CCP and its engagement-centered policy towards China. You went on to say that the Trump administration has also clarified the relationship between the CCP and the Chinese people. Now, this is important, elaborating the notion that the CCP is not equal to China. He also revealed details of the CCP virus pandemic that taught the U.S. a painful lesson about being misled by the CCP's dishonesty. This is what the Chinese Communist Party wants, but the Trump administration is not playing along. If the Chinese Communist Party wants to talk, They must do so with honesty and openness. The ultimate goal is to oppose authoritarianism and dictatorship and to protect the continued existence of democracy and freedom around the world. The Chinese Communist Party wants to control not only the Chinese people, but the entire world. In the last part of the interview, you said that it would be, of course, better if the Trump administration had 4 more years. On November 17th, the Trump White House also released a 70-page unclassified document called The Elements of the China Challenge, which lists the following 10 U.S. tasks in response to the Chinese Communist Party. These include promoting constitutional government and civil society, maintaining the world's most powerful military, strengthening a rules-based international order, strengthening alliances and building new international organizations to promote democracy and human rights, raise awareness of CCP penetration to the American people, training a new generation of civil servants who understand the challenge of competing with the CCP, reforming the U.S. education system to help students understand civic responsibility in a complex information age, and advocating for a society that holds up principles of freedom in words and in deeds. At the same time, 2 U.S. allies, Australia and Japan, have recently signed a mutual access agreement establishing a quasi-alliance between Japan and Australia due to the threats to the regional security posed by the Chinese Communist Party's actions. Well, that's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.